We are live.
Hello, Charles.
Aloha, Mel. How you doing, brother?
I am doing groovy, groovy, groovy.
Good, good.
As you can see, I am not in my normal studio at home. I am at a friend's house in Lihui, um, and they've allowed me to broadcast here from their living room right here in Lihui. So that's why it looks a little different, but nonetheless, hope you can hear me okay. Hope you can see me okay.
Yep, very good.
Awesome. How was your day, buddy? How was your day today?
Well, was very interesting. Was very interesting. Other than that, just trying to look at everything, trying to take in everything that's been happening so far. Uh, Again, numbers climbed, soared one more time at I believe what 179 today.
Yes, it was.
So uh, without putting any ketchup on the situation, it is what it is. So, but other than that, I'm doing fine, brother. I had a chance, went outside and just look at the neighborhood, just appreciate everything that God has given me, blessed me with another day of life, and I'm just I'm just happy. I'm just happy to be on earth and healthy. Yeah, healthy and
Awesome. Well, I mean, I think likewise. I mean, I think there's a lot of good things that goes on in our lives every day, and we gotta thank God for that. And at the same time, be careful about what's going on around us. I know the numbers are freaking a lot of people out. A lot of people are wondering when is the state going to take some action. Tonight we have Senator Glenn Wakai, who's been very outspoken on some of the aspects of COVID and what the state should do on the testing process, opening up tourism. So we have him on tonight, and he'll be on very shortly. But I think overall, people are scared and looking for answers from our leaders. We hear the lieutenant governor is talking about. By the way, the lieutenant governor will be on. Josh Green will be on our show on Tuesday, and who knows what it's going to look like on Tuesday. But that was the quickest we could get him on, so he'll be on next Tuesday. But it's people are watching the news, listening to all the press releases, press conferences, trying to figure out, hey, governor, when are you gonna when is something gonna happen? The lieutenant governor came out saying that if we stay on this track, we will run out of ICU units, ICU beds by the end of the month. We're already over 50% capacity. One hospital is at capacity, so obviously that hospital will be sending their patients to other hospitals. It's scary, and I think a lot of us are just waiting for answers. And so for me, it would make sense for the government, for the governor, for the state to release the information as soon as possible to stop any type of speculation or rumors. Let us know what you guys are thinking. Let us know, at what point will we start looking at inter-island quarantine or start to roll back on opening of certain businesses and so forth. So hopefully we'll get some answers tonight from Senator Wakai. And yes, as you can see, Charlie is asking all of you to please share this. Hit the share button, do a watch party, do whatever you want to do to get this thing out. Share it with as many people. Take your time, but hurry up. Yeah, go ahead and share it now. Share it now. Tomorrow night, just for your information, tomorrow night we will be again talking, stepping a little bit away from COVID and talking about sex trafficking in the state. Charlie, I'm not sure if you wanna discuss that and share what you know.
yes. Tomorrow night we'll be having a special guest all the way from the island of Oahu. She has been a strong advocate, um, setting up many sign waving events, talking to a lot of people because she herself was a victim at one time involved in sex trafficking. And she's making a plea, especially to the young ones or families, to be mindful, to be careful, to be watchful. that this is in itself is an epidemic as well, and she wants to get the word out. And we welcome her tomorrow night at 7 p.m. here on Facebook Live with Mel and Char. Her name is Sonia Gomes from the island of Oahu. She will speak with much, I have to say, with much compassion, but more so with much credibility because of her direct involvement. And she talks about some of the scars that's been left behind, and she just wants to make sure that we can protect our keiki. That's what it's all about, protecting our keiki.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of other issues going on. I know I was reading a Facebook post today, and someone posted, a female posted that, why don't you guys talk about sex trafficking, child sex trafficking? It was so ironic that in fact we have that scheduled for tomorrow night. So nothing happens by accident. I think we all need to share information. It's really what we do. I know some people get frustrated. I've been reading some of the posts today on our from our last night's broadcast, and you know, I encourage dialogue. I encourage debate. I encourage different opinions, but let's just keep it civil. Let's keep it cool. Let's learn from one another. There's some people that believe that we need to open up and we should not even be talking about shutting down the state. There's others that believe that this number, we're at a point now where we were told months ago that if we got to this point, we would be shutting down. And we're here. Lieutenant Governor Green, who is a medical doctor, who is an emergency room physician, is obviously concerned. And he's very concerned that our medical resources are going to be tapped out. He's truly, genuinely concerned. I agree with him. I believe him. I believe that his analysis is the right one based on what's happening in other states and in other counties. So we're going to find out, hopefully within the next 24 hours, what the governor's plan is. I can only hope that it's going to be pulling back on at least some of the things. I think the inter-island quarantine is vital. I think that's the first thing that should be implemented because Honolulu is a hotspot. Honolulu is a hotspot right now. The numbers are rising. I would guess, Charlie. I don't know what you think tomorrow will be, but people ask me what do you think will be tomorrow. I think it'll hit 200 tomorrow. I think it'll be over 200 tomorrow, and
Yes,
I think
I
within
agree.
the next 3 to 5 days we'll be at 300, and that scares me. That scares me because if we're doubling up on the numbers, as the governor, lieutenant governor said, by the end of the month, we will have no intensive care unit rooms available for anyone. For anyone. That is something I think we all should be concerned about.
Well, I also wanted to mention, and I thought this over and over again, and this came as a last night's show, that again, everyone has their right to comment, but let's think about what we say, what we do, because there are those that will think otherwise. We have a vast majority that agrees in the subjects that we put on air, and there's a few that doesn't. For the few that doesn't, all I hope and pray for is there are people right now very vulnerable, and if you're trying to tell them that not wearing a mask is okay, but that you yourself are pretty much healthy and you could outrun this thing should you get sick, that's you. But the person you're touting or speaking to let them know that it's okay not to wear a mask, they may not have everything lined up to put them in a safe position to start with. Okay, and I'll give you an example. It's like someone who says I can swim, but you don't bother to ask them if they're a strong swimmer. So you take them to Waimea Bay when there's big surf. Do you expect them to survive out there? They're gonna get pounded. You gotta be honest with them. If you're gonna tell them that they don't have to wear a mask, that's your right. But also tell them that should they get infected, what they need to do. Don't just stop short of telling them what they need to do. Okay? That is irresponsible of you. If you're going to tell them that uh, this virus is just like the flu, you need to tell them that, okay, but should you get sick and should you get the flu and not COVID, you might run the chance if you go into the ER, there may not be beds available to treat you because COVID may be ahead of you. You need to explain all those things. Don't stop the story halfway through the page. And that's what I've been noticing. Everybody says, "Hey, you're 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 only telling one side of the story." No, we're giving you both sides. It's just that the experts we bring on go this way. You want us to go the other way. Yet when you ask us on air through your comments, you're not asking us why you want to bring them on. You're not asking us what their strengths are. You're not even telling us how many patients they may have treated or what the outcomes are. I asked one of the viewers who went the other way, please, the person you want to bring on, let me know if they've been on CNN, NBC, MSNBC, something like that, so we can vet the person. Why? Because if that person comes on air, we don't want anybody to get bombarded. That is not the purpose of why we do this. It shouldn't be a distraction. We're trying to get information out. If the person is going to get slaughtered because we didn't do our job and put someone on, it's almost like saying, hey, go walk the tightrope, and you never walked a tightrope before. Do you think you can get across? You're probably going to fall off halfway through. So all I'm saying is if you're going to put something out, don't stop in the middle. Tell them the whole story. Tell them all the consequences that can be faced. Okay? Because that's what we do. We give you the information. If you can use it, fine. If you can't, let it go. Move on. So there were some last night that just felt, I'm going to give you this much information and bam, you're going to stop right there. You didn't complete the story. I wish you would. Okay?
We will bring anyone that wants to come on to the show. We've said this numerous times. But again, we can invite, we cannot force. If they don't want to come on our show, so be it. We get a lot of suggestions from people. I can assure you that we send those people our email. It's a standard invite email with a link to our archived shows so they can watch. And some of them, maybe they don't have time or they don't want to. But I think at the end of the day, it's we're bringing on experts that are familiar with COVID-19 and the impact to people, and that's what we want to do. And regardless of what their position is, it's just sometimes, I think the majority of the doctors that are treating COVID on the front line are in agreement. I believe they're all in agreement because they see it every day. And I think those doctors that may not see as many cases all have theories and they want to push their theory. But at the end of the day, we're interested in talking to people that are in the front line, actually working with COVID patients, looking at different types of treatments. And that's what we're looking for. So if you know of anyone, let us know. Let us know. But just don't take a screenshot of the guy's face on CNN and say, hey, try to get this guy. We can use a little bit of help on maybe you know a little bit about the person, because really, like Charlie said, we're not going to just bring on anybody that we don't know anything about. We definitely want to do our research, our due diligence to make sure that this person is not a whack nut and someone that can maintain an hour long conversation. So I know
Yes.
someone was asking about how many cases on any spikes on Kauai. We are blessed. Kauai is lucky. We work hard to get where we're at. We've had top leaders that are making decisions early on. So we are in a very good position as far as COVID, the viral load on Kauai. I'm not going to say we don't have any virus on the island because I believe we do, but it's minimal and it's not spreading. The reason the concern is that you have wide open inter-island travel that could create a problem. One person is all it'll take. So we have been advocating putting back the inter-island quarantine. Understand, if we put back the inter-island quarantine, and if we can effectively monitor that, Kauai can move around. We don't have to shut down like the rest of the states. We can actually continue to do what we do. Businesses could still operate because we have that layer of protection called the inner island quarantine. So that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping that's what we do because we don't have much of a viral load here in Florida. So
Yeah.
anyway,
What's another real fast? What's another thing
yeah,
just to consider? If we want to contain this virus, okay, we all want to do what is right, but the dynamics have changed a little in order to succeed. I believe 80 to 90% of the people are doing what is right. I believe that. In order to beat this, we have to be operating at 100%. So we have to be able to convince that last 10%, in order for us to open freely, they have to comply because we have to bring this thing under control. If not, that 10% is the elusive 10% that can get people infected, that can be asymptomatic, that can be pre-symptomatic, that can infiltrate all the good that everybody's doing, only to spike the numbers up again. Think about it. If we can bring everybody into 100%, I tell you, because if you're going to sit there and criticize me to say, Charlie, as long as you get 60%, you'll be fine. Okay. So that means for every 10 days, we run 4 days, right? 40% for every 10 days, we run 4 days. Possibly something going to happen. You want to play with those kind of odds? I don't. I don't. So, anyway,
all right. Well, let's bring on Senator Wakai. I remember the last time we had Senator Wakai on, it was very interesting and it was fun.
yes. And he's hooking up his audio. His audio is live. Right
Uh-oh,
now,
did
his
he mute
audio
it?
is mute. He has it on mute.
There
Ta-da!
he is.
Hi guys.
How are you doing, Glenn?
Good. Thanks you for inviting me. And I noticed the backdrop changed. You guys like upgraded to like a hotel suite.
Yeah, we are operating out of the five-star um, resort that got donated to us, and yeah, now we're big time, man. We made Civil Beach. We're big time.
Well,
Congratulations.
I've been criticized, good criticism, that my backdrops. So what I did is I took myself out of the closet. So now I'm in a better setting, right?
I'm glad you got out of the closet. I'm glad your wife didn't lock you in there, Charlie.
Yeah.
And actually, I'm at a friend's house right now, so I'm borrowing their living room. So tomorrow I'll be back in the same old place. So yeah, we're not that famous.
But you have those iconic jealousies in the backdrop, Mel.
I know. Yeah, we'll see it tomorrow again. How are you? How you been, my friend? You guys been busy. A lot of developments since the last time. For those of you that don't know, this is Senator Glenn Wakai from our state legislature. I've seen you on a few Zoom meetings and Facebook broadcasts. Thank you for what you're doing for us, man.
Trying to. I mean, I actually learned a lot from watching your posts about what's going on locally as well as nationally. But we got to get a handle on the health issues and then figure out what the plan is to open up the economy. But I totally support and agree with both of you, where it's really got to be public health first and then the economy second.
Let me ask you there, Senator. I just made a statement before you came on that we're driving to get everyone into compliance, so we can walk that road together without having the spread. It appears right now the spread is going sideways. It's community. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. From a legislative standpoint, what will it take? What kind of hard measures need to be taken to try to get everyone into compliance? I believe there's about 85 to 90% of the people there, they are complying. It's that 10% that becomes that elusive number, that when they get a small infection in that 10%, maybe because they gathered, They didn't take all the precautionary measures. The next thing you know, it festers. And then we have this problem again where the numbers are so large, it kind of is knee jerking where measures are going to be taken and everybody's like, oh, no, no, tell me we're going to close down again. So, from a legislative standpoint, what do you think the administration needs to do right now?
We need to start criminalizing stupidity, and get people who are reckless. Because you're absolutely right, it's a small minority that's really screwing it up for the rest of us. So if the requirement is a mask, a requirement is not to gather in large groups, and you do both of those things, well, maybe there should be something a little bit stiffer than just a fine. I don't think we want to fill our prisons with knuckleheads, but I mean, have some other measure. We're going to go confiscate something. Maybe we're going to confiscate all of your picnic equipment that you brought to the beach or something. But there's got to be something where people are penalized for their reckless behavior.
Yeah, maybe some a hefty fine and some community service, at the beach or the park that you were at. I see where you're going with that, and I think that's a really good point. You know, it cannot be as simple as writing a check or making a payment plan with the court. It really has to be something. And I agree, you're not going to put someone in jail for a quarantine violation or a whatever you call it, stay-at-home order or whatever. But we are contemplating, and I heard you talk about this on the Facebook Live last week with Mike DeHilig and the Filipino ladies from the local.
Yep, for the tourism, for the local five.
Yeah. But you made a very strong point, and you said that the process or the planned process for testing the one test 72 hours is ridiculous. And I wanted to talk about that. Charlie and I agree. First of all, we definitely, I think 95% of the community that is following this agrees. Every doctor that we've had on this show has said at a one test 72 hours prior to coming is inadequate. But I like the way you said it. If you can just talk about that real quick.
Well, I think the idea of having travelers here choose whether they want to get tested or not is a ridiculous proposition. So even if we were to do Josh Green's CVS deal, and let's say we have a flight from LA on Hawaiian Airlines, half the people on the plane get tested, half the people choose not to get tested. I mean, in a 5-hour flight, Garen's ball barons, all the dirty people on that flight are going to infect the 50% that are clean. And so we're going to have this false sense of security when the 50% get off the plane, say, hey, look, I got my certificate from CVS. I'm going to go and gallivant all over the place, not knowing that they just got infected by the person in row a 27 seat B that they were sitting next to. That, I think it's either got to be everybody gets tested at the point of departure or everyone gets tested here. You cannot have half this, half that. I think that's so ridiculous.
I think the way what Mel had said and what you're saying now, that 50%, then maybe the 50% that did take the test and negative, they get to ride in the plane, and the 50 that don't ride in cargo under the plane. What about that? What do you think about that?
It's funny you bring that up because I actually went down the road. I talked to both Hawaiian Airlines and Alaska Airlines. So if you don't get tested, we stick you in the back of the plane. Because here's something that I learned as well, that when you're on a plane, the circulation goes this way. It goes across from A, B, C. It doesn't go front to back, right? So if you stick all the dirty people in one section in the back, then you have a better chance of containing it there and have the tested people closer to the first class or business class or whatever. So that was what I kind of suggested to Alaska Airlines and Hawaiian Airlines. But they said that they couldn't do that because it's not that simple, right? We got loyalty program and, your local guy on Hawaiian Airlines, they want to put you in a certain seat. So it's not clear for them, as clear and easy as just sticking all the dirty people in the back and the clean people in the front. But somehow there needs to be some level of separation if we were to go down the road of having optional testing on flights.
Well, the doctors there's one, I think, agreement in several of our doctors that if you do the one test 72 hours prior to departure, you're going to catch about 30% of the virus. So For every three that come through, seven escape and will be in our state spreading the germ. That is not numbers that I think the state should be okay with. That to me is playing with some very dangerous odds. And obviously, the more you test, the Kauai discussion group had the two test 6-day quarantine program. I think that works. I think that brings it up to, I can't remember the number, maybe 70 or 75% of the virus would be caught. And the more often you test, obviously, or the longer after that initial test it passes before you do the second test, the higher the success. But the one test is simply not going to do it, and I really am afraid that's kind of the direction that the state is going. Do you have any information? I heard a birdie told me that they might be considering a two-test 6-day quarantine. Have you heard anything about that?
I am not aware of that. I'm just familiar with what Josh Green was promoting, which is the pre-departure tests with CVS and perhaps Walgreens.
There's this notion that's floating around now because we talk about social distancing, and we're basically to the point where we're giving it to people intravenously. Social distancing, mask, and sanitizing. People get it. What becomes defeating, and I wanted to get your take on it, what becomes so defeating about that is that when you ask for a 6 foot or a 10 foot whatever the footage is, when you go into a plane, there is no way you have a 6 foot distance. So it's almost as if you're sitting there and I said, man, they've been touting this thing, and then here we are. Yeah, we're 1 seat away, but a seat is maybe what 2.5 feet wide.
Yeah.
That's all your distanceable. What's your take on that? It almost gives credence that we're doing a false advertisement in some way or another.
Yeah, and not all airlines are even going to abide by that, right? We have, I think, was it Delta or United that said they don't care about social distancing, right? They're there to make profit, so they're going to pack the plane with whatever uh, is sold on the flight. But I just think it's very difficult, yeah, to do social distancing. And as we just talked about earlier, I mean, how do you do the circulation? You're in a capsule with 200 or so other people. It's kind of like being on a submarine. If someone has bad breath at the back of the submarine, you're going to smell the bad breath on the front of the submarine, right? You're in a capsule. I don't know how you prevent everybody on that flight getting infected if there's some raging guy with Hanabata on that plane.
The two airlines is United and American
Oh, United America.
that they're going to sell out their seats. Delta is still one of the last flights that are holding out. There are airlines that is holding out and allowing the middle seat. They tell me that they're flying at 60% capacity, and that's what they plan on continuing to do. So, but even at 60%, you still the social distancing is difficult. It's very difficult, and the amount of people that are from all over the country, they're going to hub in LA. Kauai right now, we have Delta flying to Kauai direct from LA 5 nights a week. 5 nights a week, we're going to have Delta coming to Lihue from LA. They hub in LA from Arizona, from Texas, from Florida, from New York, and all the hotspots are going to hub in LA and be on Kauai soil 5 hours later. And that's scary. And then we deal with the difficulty in making sure that we got all these loopholes that these guys are finding out for quarantine. And that is a huge, huge concern, not just for us, but for everybody in the state.
Wait, I just had a brilliant idea. You know how like when we sit on the plane and they do the safety check, okay, buckle in, and then they do the air thing, right? The thing pops from the roof, and then you put it on your kid first, and you put it on. What if I don't know how long that lasts? What if that thing lasts for 5 hours, and everybody on the plane, you just breathe through that for 5 hours, and then okay, then we would totally help mitigate some of the circulation and breathing disease stuff next to you, right? I mean, I don't know what the capacity is out there, but then you got an air filtration system right above everybody's seat. Maybe put that maybe on everybody's face and see if that helps keep the dirty people from infecting the clean people.
Another thing, another thing I was just thinking about is if we look at every emergency worker, every picture you see, they're in full containment suits, right? Whether it's disposable or not. Maybe it's going to get to the point where airlines should mandate that, where everybody has to suit up to be self-contained. If you have the virus, you keep it to yourself until you reach the next destination, and from there, the only drawback will be they'll be in Hawaii. Then we're going to have to address the issue again about the quarantine, and that's my segue into asking you the next question: is the state thinking about having a mandated quarantine that's controlled by the state? Because voluntary quarantine is not working. That is a given. We are expending resources to play cat and mouse. I think the cat and mouse game has to end already. We need to do something that's very targeted, very specific, and needs to be rolled out immediately. Have you heard anything from the state level, the administration, about that?
You mean like having a quarantine hotel? So you exit the flight and you will stay in this designated hotel for 14 days. I know there's been a lot of talk about that, but how you actually set that up, what hotel would want to volunteer to be that, right? If I'm Sheraton Hilton, I don't want to be known as Quarantine Hawaii, right? And the bigger issue is who's going to pay for that, right? If we're going to mandate a person get off the plane and go to quarantine hotel, we have to pay for that because we're mandating them to stay there. So how we get around that, I'm not too sure how we get there. But you know what is interesting? I was just on a call of all places with this place called Saipan. It's about 120 miles north of Guam. Saipan, everybody who gets off the plane gets tested, and those who are not locals are quarantined for 14 days, and they have a designated quarantine hotel. I mean, keep in mind, Saipan only gets about 120 people, visitors and locals a day coming in on two flights a day there. But they've set up a system where the local government pays for this 125 room hotel. And they have a very low infection rate. I'm sorry, I don't know the numbers, but that's how they have approached it. So it's not as if no place hasn't done that. There are. It's just by the volume of people that come into Hawaii, I don't know how we're going to be able to manage to pay for such a quarantine hotel.
I think South Korea does that as well. I mean, there are many countries that are doing that now, where you don't have an opportunity unless you live there. You can go quarantine at your house, but you know, it's so much more elaborate. You get off the plane, you get tested. You don't go anywhere until you get your test results. Of course, they have rapid testing. If you're obviously, if you have symptoms coming off the plane, you go straight to the medical facility, no questions asked. If you test negative, you get to go and quarantine in your facility. If you test positive, you go to a quarantine facility. So I mean, there's a lot of different models that can be, and you know, I think and I know our mayor is discussing the bubble, the hotel bubble, and I think it's a brilliant idea. It was brought up. It's actually brought up in a Kauai discussion, the Kauai group discussion, where the hotel would allow all of their guests on quarantine to be able to not have to stay in their room. They could stay in designated areas on the property. They couldn't leave the property, but they would be able to utilize the amenities. They could use the pool. They could use the gym. Obviously, you know, disinfecting gotta happen. But you basically give these guys an experience at the hotel. They can actually stay on property. It wouldn't have to be limited to their room. I think that worked. I think hotels could benefit because I believe the quarantine cost by the state law is borne by the passenger or the quarantine person, right? I think if we can establish, and again, this is something the state, the governor guys should be looking at, is if we can designate or certify quarantine certified hotels. These are hotels that have passed the state's standards, that you can come to our hotel, you can enjoy. We'll provide free movies. We'll provide live entertainment at night where you can come as long as the social distancing is practiced. You wear your mask when you're outside of the room. I think people would go, and they would, you know, they would have to get their food brought in, or the hotel could provide food. My point is that without a system of monitoring the quarantine or the people on quarantine, we're going to constantly have people straying and spreading the virus, especially once we open up the tourism.
Yeah, I saw something on the Hawaii News Now tonight about geofencing. So places like Ko'olina, maybe Poipu, maybe Princeville, which maybe not just one hotel, but a collection of hotels where you can kind of keep a handle on things. And to your point, it might work well, Mel, but there are going to be people who are going to try to scurry out and go and see Waimea Canyon and try to go down Nawili Willie Stream or do something that's outside of Poipu or Princeville. And it's still going to be the Kauai Police Department's responsibility to chase them down. So it's unfortunate. Like I mean, as we started at the beginning, how do we convey to people just being personally responsible? We everything would work well if it was an honor system and everybody was honorable. Unfortunately, many Americans are very dishonorable folks that like to kind of see how far they can push the envelope. So I think Mel, that's something to look forward to in terms of us if we when we get a handle on the infection rate and then figure out how do we have a really good plan to reopen tourism. I think that would be a good first step uh, on that journey.
Now, Senator, have you sat in on any discussion involving the health department and their update as far as their contact tracing program? And I'll tell you the reason why I'm presenting this to you. Most of us that watch Mel and Charlie Live, or other programs, we only get tidbits here and there of the contact tracing program. We don't get a full detail. I've been trying to get some kind of document that explains the contact tracing from A to Z. I've heard it before from the governor as well as Bruce Anderson that had totally opposite end. One said we have it under control. Governor said no, we don't have it under control. So we then have this mixed messaging. Then we hear it from the lieutenant governor that questions the contact tracing. We now hear that if they reach a certain number, there will be no way to conduct contact tracing. Right now, because Honolulu seems to be, for some reason, for some odd reason, and maybe because it's due to population base, more testing is done there than the other islands, or who knows, seems to be the county that will dictate to the rest of the state how we operate. Yet they're the ones that's out of control.
Mhm.
Having said that, have you heard anything from DOH on what their plans are? Because, for many of us that listen and for the rest of the operation within a state, we have to take the not the DOE, but the DOH's lead on this. And it seems very skeptical now. And I think that could lay credence to why some people just don't want to listen. It's the program doesn't have to doesn't seem to have this validity. So I wanted to find out from you as a senator within the legislature if you've been in front of the DOH and have they told you any of their programs?
I do not interact directly with DOH, but I do watch avidly the Senate Committee on COVID. And I believe tomorrow, in fact, they're going to have the Department of Health and Sarah Park talking particularly about this subject of contact tracing. I do know that early on, the state, or at least the legislature, wanted to compel the governor and administration and Department of Health to hire more contact tracers, and that the University of Hawaii and the nursing program was really enthusiastic about providing the personnel that is necessary. For whatever reason, the governor sat, and only a month ago actually embraced the UH nursing school to provide the contact tracers that we need. But if I recall correctly, for every 100,000 people, we need 30 contact tracers. And we, at this rate that we're going and exploding, at least on Oahu, we're not going to have nearly as many contact tracers as we need. And to your point about Hawaii kind of just being the epicenter of badness for the infection, I saw Mayor Victorino from Maui today pretty much saying like, hey, don't give us any of your people. Stay on Oahu. Don't bring your diseases over here. And I think Mayor Kawakami also reinforced that. I don't know what Harry Kim did, but I think that's smart for the neighbor islands to recognize that, Oahu's kind of got it's out of control here. And to safeguard your islands, I think it's smart that your mayors have told the state that you don't want Oahuans going over to your islands. But yeah, Charlie, I was on that call that Mel saw earlier. See, like we have it in the administration is we have Jonkin poll. They Jonkin poll on Monday and announce what they're going to do on Tuesday, and then the next week it's just a whole different set of rules. It cannot be. We need to have guidance. We need to have structure to understand how we're going to open or how we're going to shut down. But the lack of a plan is what's leading to all of this confusion. How many tracers? How many IC beds do we need? How many ventilators? It's all kapakahi, and we really need to put together a clear health plan as well as economic recovery plan.
Well, I tell you where I'm confused, and I think a lot of people are confused, is early on when we had the phases, we got to do certain things before we elevate to the next phase, and it was so many days without an active case, we could move to the next level. And I remember the DOE coming out and saying we are not going to open schools until we have 30 consecutive days without a new case. Uh, while the administration may have amnesia, the people don't. We remember that, and it's very difficult. In fact, I saw Mayor Caldwell's. I tell you, yesterday's press conference, you could tell that he was bothered. You could tell that he was scared. He's worried, rightfully so. His island is blowing up. But he said he showed the graph that when we were at, I said this last night. I'm tired of repeating myself, but when the graph, when our bar of cases, the graph showed this much, we were shutting everything down. And then when it's this much, we're opening everything up. It's hard for normal people like us to understand that. And we have, from day one, and when I say we, I'm talking about the administration, the state administration has set the timelines by date, not by the actions of this virus, not by benchmarks of certain things that happen with the virus. We've set dates, only to have to come back and move back the date rather than say when we reach 14 consecutive days without new active cases or 14 consecutive days of decreasing new case numbers, then we can start moving. No, we set a date, and now it's very hard when we're every day we're exponentially growing, and yet we're still talking about opening up the state. People are confused, and I'm not sure how we fix that.
I think it's an easy fix. We just have a clear matrix. Okay, these are the benchmarks. As you mentioned, infection rate, not hotel, but hospital vacancies, a number of people who passed. There's clear metrics that we can come up with to kind of give us a real good temperature check as to the health of our community. And as we get better, then things open up. And these bars open up, hotels open up, and whatever opens up. And then when we hit certain bad benchmarks, then we have a clear idea of when we close. I mean, every business person out there needs to have some level of guidance, right? You can't just turn on a light switch and open up a business and then things are going bad and you flip the light switch off and things are pow, right? People's livelihoods are at stake. And as a state, we deserve to give people a clear game plan. You might not agree with the game plan, and we can argue about the game plan, but to have nothing there and have this kind of mystery theater on Mondays as to what the heck is going to happen the coming week, that is just unacceptable for government. That is our number one priority in government, whether it's federal, state, or city, is public health and safety. Everything else is secondary. We're never going to have a good education system, good roads, good economy unless we have good public health. And somehow we don't know how to calibrate. We don't know how to create a clear metric and plan for our recovery, both health-wise as well as economically.
You know, we had a guest on that was phenomenal, and you as well, sir. You as well. You're a phenomenal guest. But this gentleman is a doctor from Arizona, Doctor Murtaza Akhtar, and he made a statement that was it resonated really strong amongst of yours, and that is he understands that Hawaii is tourism driven, but he posed a question: how many of you really think that with the amount of money that a tourist spends to come to Hawaii, they're going to want to be tethered? How many of you really think that? And so we're sort of in a catch-22 situation. You want them, but yet just by the nature of it, they're not going to want to be restricted.
Mhm.
So what kind of plans going forward do we implement? So there's a meeting of the minds, because I don't think we'll be able. If it was me, I don't know how you would ever be able to accomplish that task. I just cannot see it happen. Not if I'm gonna spend $6,000-7,000 to come here and spend maybe like a week in Hawaii. I mean, if you're gonna tell me, it's almost like you telling me throw the money away because I won't be able to do anything.
Yeah, I mean, we want people to come here, drop off your wallet at the airport, and then leave, right? But
Yeah.
that's not going to happen. And the way we sell Hawaii is sand, sea, and surf, right? It's resort. It's everything about your vacation in Hawaii is about the outdoors and exploring. So the way we market ourselves, yeah, I totally agree. Doesn't lend itself well to people who want to. I mean, maybe if we were a business destination, we were like a Chicago, right? We could drop our bags, we'd go to a conference, convention, or whatever, see a minimal amount of Chicago, and get on the plane and come home. So I think if we were in that arena of tourism, we would have a shorter runway for recovery. But we're the complete opposite, right? We showcase the outdoors and natural beauty and encourage people to embrace that outdoors and exploration. And that is what's going to provide us a longer runway to recovery than perhaps some other city that has tourism as a main impetus of their economy.
Real quickly before I let Mel jump in on this, last night on NHK News, they talked about these different prefectures in Japan that are tourist destination, are tourist driven.
Mhm.
And what they did and what they found to be working is they turned those tourist destination into working hubs or working vacations. Meaning, because they're this distance working, they set up like internet hubs all over in these resorts, where these business people would go there and actually work during the day of their vacation. And yet it allowed them to, one, complete work, and two, be able to feed into the economy of those areas. Is that something that Hawaii would be willing to think about? I mean, it seems to be working there.
Yep. And in fact, Hawaii Tourism Japan was going down that road. Was called workation, and so they were targeting, a lot of these folks that buy the fancy kaka'ako condominiums are outside investors, many of them Japanese. So they were targeting those folks that, the family comes here for a month, right? Not to be sexist or something, because women work too, but mom would take care of the kids at the luxury condo. Dad would go to the sandbox or workstation in Hawaii and could still communicate with the bosses back home in Japan. So Hawaii was going down that route of trying to entice people for longer stays and family travel, where mom and the kids have fun and dad is over there busting his okole trying to pay for the bills that the kids are enjoying.
Okay.
But to
One of
your
the
point about
oh, go ahead.
But to your point about Japan travel, I mean, because Japan doesn't want to allow its people to exit, they're really emphasizing domestic travel. So their equivalent of HTA, which is JATA, is really promoting. Yeah, go see some of these more obscure Japanese towns. If you live in Tokyo, get out to the country, go climb Mount Fuji. So there's a real big emphasis on Japan to sell domestic travel to their own people. Although we are familiar with Okinawa. Okinawa was one of the biggest beneficiaries of the shutdown, right? Okinawa is as close to Hawaii as Japan can get. So Okinawa was seeing a big windfall of tourists because they couldn't come to Hawaii, but because of what's going on with the military base and their rising number of infections, Okinawa is actually clamped down to similar to Hawaii, where they're putting in a 14-day quarantine. So things are different in Japan, but I do think that things are getting more troublesome in Japan. So, we talked in the past about the travel bubble. And yay, 2 weeks ago, Hawaii was one of 12 destinations that were seen as kind of go to uh, destinations in the future. I think over the past 2 weeks, both with the troubles in Japan as the troubles here, I don't think that's going to be happening anytime in the near future.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, that's the thing with this virus. You work so hard, you create that bubble, and then the numbers spike. And we talked about the numbers, and I know a lot of people look at our numbers and said, your numbers are low compared to Arizona or Texas. And one of the things that concerns me and a lot of the doctors that have spoken about it is the rate of positives on the test. Proportionately, we're looking at about a 6 or 7% positive rate from all of our tests that are given, not based on population, but based on the tests that have been taken. And I believe that is the more worrisome number when you're talking about a six, even 5 or 6% positive rate. That's kind of scary. And you can assume the more tests you give, the more positives you'll get. But remember when it first started, we started getting the spikes. It was clusters. It was a cluster at this location or that location. Now, as the State Department of Health is releasing the cases as they find it, you see students from high school, you see firefighters. Today was a sheriff. These cases now, you can see the community spread is rampant, and after those guys get their contacts get tested, the growth will be exponential. That's why I'm saying that I predict our numbers to go from here to go high quickly. How in the world are we going to even address opening tourism? And then what I know this is the focus of your town hall the other day was the economy and tourism. How can we even start to address that while our numbers are increasing?
I think it would be foolish to address that at the moment. I think that we as a state should be focused on getting the community spread under control. And then we have that talk about opening up the economy. Because I think at this point, having both conversations at the same time will only just dilute and pit people against each other. I think if and I know that the hospitality industry is antsy. They want to open the doors tomorrow. But if they are clearly told that when we get a handle on opening schools, opening up our community, and then we'll get to you, and convey that to them. Because sometimes you get too many people in there, and then they're yapping over here. You lose focus, and then you do things that you normally wouldn't do. I think right now the number one focus should be on public health. And as soon as we get the numbers down, okay, now let's have a concerted effort to strategically open up the economy. But to have both those conversations going on simultaneously, I think will only dilute the end result that we all want to achieve, which is a cleaner and safer community.
Now, am I wrong to assume? I hate to assume, but I'm going to assume anyway. It's at a point that we're at the bottom of the barrel. I think for a population as the size of Hawaii, and I'm still trying to figure out. But I guess the reason I'm posing this question to you because you're at the ledge, so you're closest to the fifth floor. What is making the governor so hesitant and just pulling the trigger? Because a lot of times we won't know until you pull that trigger, and this delay is causing a this tidal wave to get even bigger and even bigger to such point we don't know when it's going to peak and just come crashing down. I mean, we feel the crash, but I think there's going to be a bigger crash. And I'm saying I would hope that they're thinking about maybe easing the crash a little so it doesn't hurt as much. But why do you think the government is just hesitant on making any kind of tough decisions?
I think that's to be honest, that's a character flaw, that you don't have the courageous stamina and backbone to make decisions. But it shouldn't be surprising to all of us. Not to bring up another issue, but you look at TMT. I mean, that thing is just lingering. And I'm a believer that just make a decision. Either it's going to go forward or not. Stop this kind of putting it off. I mean, I'm calling TMT the 30-year telescope, not the 30-meter telescope. I mean, it's ridiculous how this administration just on a number of different fronts doesn't make decisions and just live with it, because that's what we all want. At least we can all go on with our lives, right? If TNT is going to disappear off the face of Mauna Kea, then so be it. Then we'll go and pursue other things. But you cannot just have these things kind of lingering out there. And so with this public health crisis in front of us, I don't think any of us should be super surprised. It's not as if he showed us a great leadership on making decisions to cure problems in the past. But so I think that's the reason why we're kind of here. I mean, his view of solving public policy is just natural evolution. Let time take care of it. Time is not taking care of it. Time is is our enemy. It's not our friend on this issue.
You're the economic development guy, right?
Yep.
And I got to tell you, it's very comforting to hear you speak as you are tonight, putting the public health and safety first. Um, it really makes me feel a lot better. But you know, early on, and this is going to end up being a question. I think you might have already answered it, but in the beginning, it was very clear to me that when the governor first spoke about COVID, it was very clear. And I have a lot of friends in the visit industry. I have a lot of people right on this call right now that are dear friends to me that work in the hotel industry, and they are afraid to go back to work because they don't have the proper training, they don't have the proper PPE, they don't if they're not they don't feel safe yet. So, and I apologize if I pissed anybody off, but it was very clear to me that the governor's priority from day one was tourism, was making sure that we didn't inconvenience visitors, that we would, whatever we did would not damper the image that our potential visitors and tourists have on our wonderful state. And as this COVID got worse, I gave them a free card early on because it was so early. We didn't know much about the virus. But as we started to find out that this was a deadly virus and it was killing a lot of people, it was making a lot of people sick, I didn't see the change in the priority from the governor from the visitor industry and inconveniencing the tourists over towards the public health and safety. And I still don't see that change today. I still believe that his focus, for whatever reason, is to get back the visitor industry full swing as quick as possible. And in my opinion, at the expense of our people's our health and safety. I just, am I far off with that?
I don't know, because I think if you were to ask a hotel owner their feelings, they would have the complete opposite perspective, that he has made decisions to the detriment of the hospitality industry. Even the movement from the September, the August 1st opening to now the September 1st opening was detrimental to going to the industry. So I mean Ron Kochi and I were with the hotel owners in February when it was first gurgling, and those guys acted like, this is going to be quick, nothing's going to happen. They were talking about RIMPAC is going to be great, and it'll be done by then in July. We're going to have all of these great sailors and folks from across the world going to Waikiki, and the visitor industry is going to be thriving. And Ron and I conveyed to those guys, we were just like the wet cloth in that party, that no, public health is first and foremost. Your profitability is secondary to the livelihood of our community. And they just kind of were in la la land, thinking that, man, the sky's not falling. Why? The sky is on top of us now. And they seem to have a different perspective on what the reality is. And I still think that their desire to open up is muddying up their rational thinking. They have kids. They're part of our community. How in the world, if you're the general manager of a hotel, can you say, that's okay, I want to subject the community to all kinds of potential harm because I want to put 25 people into my vacant hotel? I mean, that is an unreasonable expectation for hotelier to have. And I think that many people still have that belief that the economy and their livelihood is more important than public health.
Well, real quick, I just a real quick follow-up, Charlie. Early on, and you remember this, the visitor industry, you hit it on the head when you said they thought it was going to be a short thing, right? They thought this wasn't going to last a couple of months, maybe. So remember, they came up with Aloha Later. They spent a lot of money on Aloha Later. They did an hour-long presentation that broadcast locally and all over the mainland. Aloha Later, convincing the people, including myself, that the visitor industry that industry was concerned about the health and safety, and in fact, they were saying, "Don't come until COVID is gone." That was the message. They had actors, professional football players, ESPN announcers, all these people, please, until COVID is gone, do not come. And when you come, it's gonna be better. They put on this whole, and I bit hook, line, and sinker. I mean, I thought, wow, we got a visit industry that truly cares about the health and safety of our people because they got employees that work for them. It's not just about the guests, they got employees that work for them. And then, so that went on for a month, month and a half. And then all of a sudden, Aloha Later went Aloha. And all of these hotel people now started telling the governor, hey, you got to open up. You got to allow us to open up our hotels. All of a sudden, that change in philosophy convinced me that they were never sincere to begin with Aloha Later. That was a farce. It's like the bully at school. You know the bully. You act tough, you pick on the guy, and you tell him, meet me after school because you don't think the guy going to show up, and then the bully show up, and oh no, the guy you was picking on had show up. That's COVID, right? You thought COVID was going to go away, so you make big body. Aloha Later, no commentary. And then you show up, oh damn it, COVID is still here. The bully shows up, and the guy that he was picking on shows up and kick his ass. All of a sudden, the bully loses all sorts of credibility. That's exactly how I feel, Senator. I really do, because I sat there and I believe we had him on our show. We promoted Aloha Later on our show because I truly believe that that was the true mission of the visit industry. And now, a short month or so later, it's completely changed, and it's frustrating.
Yeah, I was having a conversation with Chris Tatum. He's the chair, the CEO of the Hawaii Tourism Authority, and really suggesting to him that all of that marketing money that he still has, something in the order of like around $50 million, he should just put it on the side. Stop marketing anything, because to your point, why market now if, I mean, heaven forbid, it's a year from now before we even embrace tourists. No need to waste money now. We need to save that for when that day comes. So he has pulled back on the contractors throughout Asia. HVCB, which markets to the US mainland, still is doing some level of marketing, but for the most part, China marketing is dead. Southeast Asia, Taiwan marketing, Oceania marketing is dead. They're spending a little bit of money on Japan and a little bit of money on the U.S. mainland, but otherwise they're kind of just hoarding their nuts, so to speak, for when the hibernation is pow, and then we can go in and really showcase Hawaii at the appropriate time. But you're absolutely right. I mean, we have no control over what's going to happen, so why even waste money and give people locally as well as those who might be visiting a false impression that Hawaii is going to rebound quickly? It might be a very long rebound for us.
I and sort of dovetailing on what Mel said, I always wanted to find out because I'm one of those, when you get this cop mentality, you kind of want to know where the origin comes from, and you want to see if the crime is truly going to be committed to the next level, which makes it go from a misdemeanor to a felony. And with that mindset of how everyone thought that the COVID was going to be a short term thing and dissipate, and then we move on. I truly believe that the governor, the DOH, they had someone consulting them, sort of like a profile, and says, you know what, from what we see and all indications are, it'll be done by this time. That's the only thing, because they were very confident in their numbers they were running back then. Okay. And yet the experts like the Fauci's of the world, Burks and whoever, they were saying that because it's novel, it's brand new, it's doing things unlike the first SARS. It's doing things totally there was no rhyme or reason. It was just operating the way it was. Did you folks from the legislative end, when this thing first started, have any indicators or being told who was kind of doing the advising upstairs? to make them think the way they were thinking? Were you folks getting any indications at all?
Oh, we were getting indications early on that there was no direction and leadership from upstairs. And you know who was kind of the one that showcased that glaring deficiency was General Hara, right? The adjutant general, the commander of the I can't remember what his title is for this, but you know, the head dude for the state on the pandemic response. General Hara had early on looked at what Washington State had, you know, certain protocols for infectious diseases and suggested, okay, Hawaii, we Department of Health, you should look at this template and we should start mirroring some of these and figuring out how it fits to in Hawaii. Sat on it. I mean, weeks went by. The information was there, but the Department of Health decided, for whatever reason, man, it's going to be short time, going to be minor. But then look at it, it bit us on the cole because people put their head in the ground.
Oh boy,
Yeah,
it sounds like a replay, ML.
Well, I mean, we should have. I look back and I don't have a very good memory, but I remember certain things because this virus. I took special interest in this virus, as many of us did. I remember certain things. I remember watching other countries. I remember watching other states. I remember realizing that we were several weeks behind the mainland. And I remember watching what other states were doing to protect or in fact, some of the states were already behind the eight ball, and we had opportunities. And I can still remember our state saying that testing wasn't important. Testing wasn't. We didn't need to test. That the virus wasn't spreadable if you didn't have symptoms. I remember all of these things that even after we were told otherwise, even after every single expert in the state and in the country told the world that testing is key. Testing and contact tracing is key. And months went by, months, no preparation for contact tracing, no preparation for testing. In fact, testing, aggressive mass testing was discouraged by this state Department of Health. And I know this because Charlie and I tried to bring testing to Kauai. We were successful with the doctors of Waikiki, but we couldn't get Miskovich over here because there was a hesitance from the government to allow mass testing. All of these things that the other states and the other countries were telling us we needed to do, we chose to sit back and wait and hope that it would go away. And now it is in our state. Senator, are you comfortable that we are heading in a direction, both the legislature and the administration, in getting a handle of this virus?
absolutely not. I mean, we have policy by kapakahiness, right? I don't know if there's such a word, but it's just
There
any
is
kind.
now. That's a new T-shirt, by the way.
Kapakahiness policy. We have to just be more discerning. We have to have some courage, and you know, just make decisions. Some of them might be a wrong decision, but at least we can recover from there. To just sit here and wait like sitting ducks here for us to get shot by something is ridiculous. We got to keep moving, and we got to like figure out what the answers are. Sitting in place is not going to get us any answers. You know what I found interesting today was Alaska next Tuesday is going to put in a little bit more robust testing. So if you're a visitor to Alaska, you have to do the test and you have to put it on. They have a portal. You have to put your test results on the state's portal. And if you don't get tested, when you arrive, Alaska is going to charge you $250 to get tested there. They're going to quarantine you until the test results come up negative, and then you can go on your merry way. I find it astonishing that Alaska is inventing the wheel on just proper protocols. Hawaii is should be the one inventing the wheel. We're not. Why should we be reinventing Alaska's wheel? Alaska only gets 2 million visitors a year. We have 10 million. We should be driving the show. But to your point, Mel, Department of Health kind of waits and sees, oh, what's the national standard? What are other states doing? Like, why in the world are we waiting for other states? We should be just driving forward with an assortment of ideas and testing them. And if they turn out to be foolish, then okay, we'll pull that back and do something else. But we can't just sit here idly. And it just baffles me that Alaska, where tourism is their number five economic engine. Tourism for us is our number one engine, and we're just kind of waiting and seeing what other states are doing for their proper travel protocols. Ridiculous.
This is what I find very, very odd. And I say this because we can learn from a lot of mistakes other states make. Okay, it's there. Dr. Akhtar said the same thing. We've made the mistakes. Hawaii, you should learn from it. It's free for the taking. We don't. Yet, when we can be innovative and lead, we're looking at states such as Alaska, but then Mel and I and some of the guests that came on made the statement, well, you know, Alaska, their tourism rate is much lower, and plus they come off of ships. So it was always like, you can't really rely on that. Well, who says we can't rely on it? Let's just go do it because there's got to be something there. And I think with that kind of mentality, that's what causes even more delay because you put doubt, right? So as long as you drop that seed of doubt, I said, how are you ever going to know what's going to work and what's not? Like Mel used to say this before regarding the AG. If you don't pull the trigger and make one arrest, how are you going to know if the arrest is good or not? You got to get it into court and you got to see if we made the right move or we made the wrong move. If we make the wrong move, we'll never do it again. But if we make the right move, it's a repetitiveness. We can do it. We are now armed with something to take care of violators of the quarantine. But if we don't even go that extra mile, it's like it's for nothing. And who suffers? It's the viewers that's watching this show tonight. They're looking for answers. I know they're getting it from you because you're helping us because that's what we try to promote. But yet it goes beyond that. We haven't even scratched the surface with unemployment yet. After all these months, you've got all these people, yet we hear horror stories about, well, there was something on the application form that disqualified them. Well, should it take 4 months before you're telling them? I was in a store today and I felt so bad that I went up ahead and I just told the cashier, whatever it costs, just take this money and I'll come get the change later. Don't tell them. I'm going to pay for their groceries. Because I heard them telling a family member who works behind the counter at one of the stores that, we didn't even get our unemployment yet. I don't know how we're going to do it. And it was heartbreaking just to see that. And the little girl wanted something. And I'm glad the dad got it. But you wonder if she's going to get something, the rest of the family got to sacrifice on not getting something to eat tonight? That's the kind of stuff that hurts me. And I just wish this state would just jump into it and just do it already.
Yeah, we can't allow the pursuit of perfection to get in the way of good. I mean, nothing is going to be foolproof. We test every single person that comes off a plane. That doesn't mean that there would never be COVID in Hawaii, but doing something. And if we catch 95%, well, I think we could all live with a 5% mistake on testing. But to say like because it's not 100%, we're not going to do testing. That is a ridiculous position for the state to take.
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
Well, I know our time is up, and obviously, Senator, I'm going to let you do a closing statement, but I know you can appreciate this, Senator, as a legislator. Um, and I worked for several mayors. I worked for a bunch of public county attorneys, which is our county attorney general. And I believe in the power of prayer. I believe in the power of prayer, and I hope everyone can join me tonight, regardless of what you believe or who you believe in, and pray to give our attorney general some courage, some wisdom, because for the next 2 days, we get 2 more days this week. If the attorney general was to sit with the legislature and the administration for the next 48 hours and focus on how we can do something rather than why we cannot do something. I had the same problem while I was on the council. Don't tell me why we cannot. Find a way we can legally do this. Find a way we can legally, and I'm not talking about circumventing or loopholes, or legally find out how the hell we can get our tourists to come quarantine whatever it takes legally to keep our residents safe. You go work on that for 48 hours. Go sit in a big ass state building, your state capitol, and don't come out until you come out with a solution. I ask for everybody to pray for that tonight. And by Saturday, the state could come out with an announcement led by the Attorney General and the governor to say what we can do. Because I'm sick and freaking tired of being told why we cannot do that. Why we cannot do what Alaska is doing. Why we cannot do what some other country or state is doing. I'm tired of hearing all the excuses. It's been almost 5 months. 5 months. And this is not in any way directed to you, Senator, because I know you have been working your ass off to do what's right for the people, and I thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the answer is for. I mean, we can pray all we want, but hope is not a strategy. I mentioned that last time. Praying is makes you feel good internally, but you're not controlling the outcome. And the Chamber of Commerce had a rally this past weekend, and people on that call, as you can imagine, just grousing about how terrible things are and how crappy government is. And I threw it back to them. It's like, you have every opportunity. It's election season. Put the right people in office. If you don't like the leadership that we have now, change it. Unfortunately, the governor's office is not going to be up for election for 2 years. But the people of Kauai need to elect proper senators, proper state representatives that are looking out for your interests. Don't just kind of blow it off like, I voted for this guy all the time or this person all the time. Be discerning, find out what their positions are in public health, economy, and make sure that their views are aligned with yours, because that's the only way the people of Kauai and the people of the state are going to get the leadership that they desire and want to see. And that's the only way we're going to change the outcome, because after 6 years with this governor who just kind of just is paralyzed, I don't see that the paralysis is going to end anytime soon. So the legislature can push all we want, but it's ultimately up to the governor and his AG and his team to effectuate any kind of initiatives or proposals that the legislators put forth. A lot of us are just frustrated. We're like so beaten down, like nobody's listening. Everybody on the fifth floor seems to be deaf. I don't know who they're talking to and who they're communicating with. And the ultimate end result is 1.4 million people are suffering and looking for hope and leadership, and we're getting absolutely nothing. There's nothing that's going on in the fifth floor that gives us any sense that this is going to happen, or we're going to pull out of this abyss anytime soon. And sometimes that's all government can provide people is a level of hope, and we're not even providing them that. That is totally unacceptable.
Well, maybe as a body, maybe as a government, it's not hope, but it's people like you that come on our show, and I'm not sure if you have a Facebook feed running right now, but when you get a chance, go back to my page, and look at the comments. I think people appreciate the open talk, the honesty, and I think that you as an individual and many of the others that come on our show offer hope. And I agree, hope is not a strategy. But you know what? Knowing that we got people up there, that square building, that is really, truly fighting for us, speaking for us, makes us feel good, makes us feel better, and gives us hope. And I thank you for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Charles.
Yes, sir.
Any final comments before we kick this guy loose?
Well, I would like to say, first of all, I am relaxing here on my recliner. I look like King Butale Tale right now. But I'd like to say, first of all, it's always a pleasure, Glenn, to have you on. Since meeting you for the first time when we brought you on, I took a liking, and I know you are running yourself. You're running for re-election this year. And I pray to God it goes favorable, because and I know you got a good team backing you. That's number one. Number two, Mel said, bring hope. And just by your words alone, that's a good indicator that at least someone, along with our Kauai delegation, we have conscious people up there thinking about the good of the entire state, not only about your district and our island, but for all the islands. And I thank you. I thank you for that. I knew that the conversation would be stimulating because we could get certain things out and put it out there for it. So with that said, folks, I just want to say that, again, when we have someone like the senator come on or other guests, We may talk in general about a lot of things, but there may be specialities that you didn't hear from each person that this person, such as the senator, brought out tonight. You get to hear those things, and that's what it's here for, and it's here for you. So again, thank you to all who tuned in, and especially thank you to you, Glenn. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Mel. Thank you, Charlie. Appreciate the time. Invite me back anytime.
Well, we're definitely. I mean, like we things change every day. We don't know what the numbers will be tomorrow. We don't know what the state's going to do. We don't know what the governor's going to do. So definitely, we will be ringing your bell to come back. I just want to say personally, thank you from all our viewers. I'm reading the comments as we're saying goodbye, and there's just a ton of people saying mahalo. Thank you, Senator. A lot of our people on Kauai wish they were in your district so they could vote for you. And we don't endorse anybody here, obviously, but I'll tell the people, if I was in your district, I would vote for you. And
Yes.
I say that with all sincerity. So, thanks again, Senator, and we will have you back. Stay safe. God bless. We will be back tomorrow night at 7 o'clock again. We'll be talking about child sex trafficking. Um, probably a difficult discussion, but we're going to be hearing from someone, local girl from Oahu that survived it. So do not miss that. We'll put up the post right after this show. So please join us tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. With that, Senator, you stay safe. You guys take care.
Thanks, guys.
See you all tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. God bless. We love you guys. Good night.
Aloha.